All right, I already checked with the media clerk, so the meeting is live on YouTube right now. No, he knows it's going. So I'll call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Okay, any members of the planning board have any comments, questions regarding the minutes of the previous meeting? All right, so I need a motion to approve the minutes. Motion made by Member Villano, seconded by Member Holmes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. All right, the minutes have been approved by a vote of 5-0 with 2 absences. Okay, next we're going on to Poplar Hill Solar. If we could have the representative of the applicant.
Good evening.
Hi, just state your name again, please.
My name is Jackie Basile. I'm from New York Solar 1001, also known as Lightstar Renewables.
Okay. All right. And so we had a site walk just recently.
Last Monday.
Most of us here were on the site walk. So you showed us your property, and so we'll talk about that, and then we'll also talk about why the previous meeting of the planning board is not posted online because of Poplar Hill Solar. So
Yes, so it was,
you can start, whichever one you want to start with.
well, we'll address that first.
Okay.
In my attempt to be as transparent as possible, I disclosed information regarding protected species that the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation had requested that we redact from the previous meeting minutes. It was definitely not my intent to disclose this information, and I've apologized to the New York State DEC, and I apologize to the planning board for any confusion and inconvenience that this has caused.
Okay, thank you for that. And once we have the meeting fully redacted, which I think is just about done, then the redacted meeting will be posted, and people will be able to see the previous meeting of the planning board. Now to the site walk.
Chairman, if the previous meeting is on YouTube for anyone who wants to see
Okay,
it.
thank you.
And also to be clear, the information was involving threatened and endangered species.
Right.
That was sensitive.
Yeah. So again, thank you for your mea culpa there. So I think we'll, at this point we'll move on from that, and just to know that there are threatened and endangered species found on the site. We're not saying specifically where on the site, as the DEC has requested that not happen publicly.
Correct.
So now to the site walk. Again, thank you for showing us the site.
Yes, thank you.
I think after seeing the site, we might have some further questions in the near future regarding the placement of where you're thinking the solar panels should go. And I know you already talked about the buffer areas and how it is gonna change, correct?
Yes, we're currently revising our site plan to accommodate both the DEC's request and some stormwater concerns. So we are working on that, and I am hoping to have a draft soon. But within the next several weeks, we'll have a better idea of what that looks like.
Okay. All right. Did any other members of the planning board have any comments or
No comment.
questions regarding the site walk? Or?
Well, I first want to say I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to attend the site walk, so I can't ask questions specifically related to it. Is there a chance that there will be a second site walk scheduled at some point? Because I would love to go and do a site walk. I just wasn't able to do it on the 12th.
And if you want to arrange that with
Yeah,
yourself?
I can arrange that. I can come back down and do another site walk with the whole planning board, or does it matter when, or
Okay.
let me know what days work for you.
I guess anybody else on the planning board who missed the site walk would
Yeah.
obviously be welcome as well. So.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, because I have some questions, but it would be inappropriate to address them when I haven't been at the site.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now on to our consultants regarding the sidewalk. I think we had our attorneys, our regular planner, we have planner Lai standing in today, and our engineer. So any comments, questions from the sidewalk?
I mean, the only comment would be for you guys to describe a little bit of the kind of vegetation you saw. We were up there, we didn't see any old growth forest.
No.
There is going to be a significant amount of vegetation removal, but none of it appeared to be old growth forest.
Right. I mean, what do we think the estimation of the oldest trees there were?
20 years.
20 years, right, okay.
Oh.
It's a lot of farm, it's a lot of, you know,
Open land.
farm areas, hay fields or whatever, with just some trees that are now kind of around the borders. Or, so that's a good point, okay. Did Planner Warner inform you of anything that you need to bring up?
He just acknowledged that he attended the site walk. He observed similarly that that it looked like it was old agricultural land that had some second growth, and that the applicant is currently responding to some of our previous comments.
Okay, all right. Anything from the engineering side? No, okay, all right, thank you. All right, do you have any questions for us at this time?
No, just I'll reach out to Marilyn to schedule a second site walk, if that works.
Yeah, it would probably be best to go through the planning office with
Okay.
our secretary.
Yep.
Yeah, because there was 3 or 4 of us, planning board members?
I wasn't.
Yeah, you weren't, there, so it was, yeah.
It was the 3 of us.
3 of us. It was the 3 of us, not Member Williams or, okay. So yeah, there's 4 other planning board members that couldn't attend. So that second opportunity would be great.
Okay. Yep.
And then do you anticipate when we might be
Yeah, I have
seeing you again? or-
a draft of the site plan due the 23rd of this month. But
Okay.
once we have our, address any comments that I have from our engineer and things like that. I'm shooting maybe for I think it was the November 21st
Okay.
meeting.
So the deadline for that is November 4th.
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be our goal at this
right.
point. But again, we had discussed the things that need to happen before then, before we
Right.
come back to have our full response to comments. So I want to make sure we have as much information as possible before we do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Now, before we go on to the public hearings, there are 2 public hearings. First one will be about Stony Brook Estates. This is for a housing project along 22 behind the Dover Plains Firehouse. So there's that public hearing, and then second, there'll be the public hearing for NY Transco. So again, if you haven't signed up for speaking at the public hearing, the forms are over there. Please make sure you sign up for the correct public hearing, as I will be calling whoever's on the list. And given the number of people that we have here this evening, I'm going to go through the rules and regulations for times over public meetings. And then just a little more explanation on that, and then we'll open the public hearing. So, persons other than members of the board may be permitted to address the board in the proper order of business. So an applicant before the board shall have an opportunity to present its application and supporting documentation and witnesses to the board at the direction of the chair. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the board during a public hearing on an application either in writing or by making oral comments to the board at the direction of the chair. Federal, state, and town officials and employees may be recognized at the direction of the chair. Okay, so the applicant for each project will get to go first, just to give us any updates or whatever they like to present to us. Then the planning board members will possibly have comments and questions, and then our consultants will have comments and questions, and then we will open the public hearing and listen to again your very important comments or questions. Okay, no person shall be permitted to address any remark or question to any specific board member, nor shall any person be permitted to address the chair while a motion is pending. Any person who disturbs the peaceful conduct of the board, of business of the board, makes slanderous remarks, or conduct himself or herself in an unruly manner while addressing the board shall be barred from speaking further before the board and may be removed from the meeting room as set forth herein. The chair shall call any speaker to order who violates any provision of the rules set forth herein. Sufficient warnings shall be given by the chair at any time during the remarks, and in the event that all individuals shall violate the rules set forth herein, the chair shall cut off the comment, and such individual shall forfeit any balance of the time remaining for comments. After a final warning from the chair, if a speaker refuses to step down, the speaker can be removed from the meeting by police or peace officer. Every member of the public shall be required to use a silent alert mode on or to mute the sound from any electronic devices during all board meetings. So if you haven't done that, please do so at this time. Okay. The following rules shall apply to all public hearings before the board in the town of Dover. Members of the public desiring to address the board during a public hearing shall register in writing prior to the beginning of the hearing by providing their name, address, and organization. So again, last time, I'll ask you to please write your name and address down on the sign-in sheet for the public hearing. Individuals arriving after the commencement of the hearing shall be permitted to register upon arrival as long as the board has not closed the public hearing. The chair shall recognize each member of the public in order registered. When the chair determines it is time for such testimony, at such time each individual shall identify themselves or address an organizations, if any, prior to their remarks. Each member of the public shall be limit his or her comments to 3 minutes, and testimony shall be limited to the subject matter of the public hearing. So we're going to have the third public hearing tonight for Stony Brook. So everyone will have 3 minutes. You're certainly welcome to submit anything you like in writing. We're going to have the first public hearing for Transco. It won't be the last public hearing for Transco, and there's a lot of people who want to speak. So everybody will limit to 3 minutes, and you'll be allowed to come back and speak again next time if you have more to say. Or again, put your comments in writing. When a speaker is representing a class or a group, seeks to speak on behalf of that class, group, or organization, additional time may be granted by the chair. Speakers may not yield any remaining time they may have to another speaker. All remarks from members of the public shall be addressed to the board as a body and not to any individual board member. Members of the public who address the board in writing on the subject of the public hearing shall have their comments entered into the minutes of the hearing by the secretary of the board. However, such letters need not be read at the hearing itself. So again, if you have certainly a lot of well thought out statements written down, you're welcome to give a brief summary in your 3 minutes. You're welcome to say whatever you want for your 3 minutes. And then I would suggest you submit that to the secretary so the entirety of your thoughts can be entered into the record. Placards, banners, signs, and balloons are not permitted, and the distribution of flyers is not allowed in the meeting room. All members of the public shall remove hats when in attendance in any town meeting, with exceptions granted by the chair for extenuating circumstances. Okay. So, when we, yes,
I'm just going to ask that you state for the record the fact that there's an overflow room.
there is an overflow room for the, I think the limit for this room is 83 people.
And so it's
I'm not sure if we have 83 people.
It's been set up so that there's sufficient room for anyone who wants to
Right.
observe the public hearing.
Which, right, I hope is working, given that the signal is not working for the meeting. But I don't know if there's anybody out there in the overflow room. Maybe someone could check that out and let us know. But again, like I said before, it seems with the storm, we've had some issues with DTV Channel 22. I received a message that the cable is down in Woodwinds. So it's working on YouTube, from what our media clerk is telling us. So, and it's being recorded, and people will be able to see it on the town's website once that is posted. All right. Just, I guess one last thing, just to make this clear to people. The planning board members, I mean, we're people, we live in this town. We may have our personal opinions about what happens or doesn't happen in the town, what comes before the planning board. Our role is to follow the town code and implement the town code. So we might think that something is a great idea, but if the town code doesn't allow for it, we can't just make it happen. And we may personally think that something is not a great idea, but if it complies with the town code and everything that we're told by our consultants and everything else that, all the other information we can gather, then, we may look to, as the planning board, approve something that the town code essentially says this needs to be approved, so. Is there people sitting out there? There's no one sitting out there. Okay, thank you. All right. So with that, we'll start with Stony Brook Estates, discussion with the applicant or their consultant. And hello. And then comments and questions from board members, comments and questions from the consultants, and then we'll open the public hearing. Or rather, we'll continue the public hearing for the third time. Yes.
Hi.
Hi, state your name. And
Julianne Flood.
Thank you.
I am co-owner of Stony Brook Estates. I
All right.
wasn't here last meeting. I apologize for that. I just wanted to say that we're still getting additional information on the site from other agencies. We reached out to the DOT, our surveyor, and our engineer, and we just didn't have everything in time for the September 9th deadline, so we'd just like to adjourn our submissions of what was discussed last meeting and whatever is discussed this meeting to October.
Okay.
If that's possible. And then any questions that arise tonight, we'll respond by writing, as well as submitting our plans by whatever the deadline is, because
Okay.
our engineer is catching up.
Right.
The only thing that I know that was submitted was the trees was given to, I don't believe he's actually here today, but Native Landscaping.
Well, he's not on the planning board anymore.
No, he submitted it to Aaron.
Oh, I see.
So he had emailed him, and I don't know if he had sent it to everybody else, but we did discuss putting more trees up and what type of trees, and I know it was sent, I don't know, he might have forwarded the email to you. But
We
that was the
received
only thing that has
information
been
on trees, yes,
sent along.
yes. Okay, so just to be clear, so the deadline for this meeting was September 2nd. We voted as the planning board to give you an extra week
Right.
to get in the information. You did not meet that deadline.
Right.
Okay. So you're thinking that you will meet which deadline now? We have a deadline of September 30th we have a deadline, yes, of
For
September
the-
30th
yeah.
for the October 17th meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll discuss at some point whether we continue the public hearing to that date or extend or adjourn and then renotice it. We'll discuss that shortly. So the issues that remain for Stony Brook are you need to work out things with the DOT.
Well, that's what they requested at the last meeting, so I wasn't here at the last
Sure.
meeting. I watched it today, though, because it was up. I sent an email to, out to see to get it up, so I just got to watch it today.
Okay.
But I'd like to have, I know she asked for a DOT update. We had a Zoom meeting with the DOT, but we'll be meeting again with them before the next meeting, so I just wanted to have everything in line for
Sure.
the next meeting.
Okay. So the DOT, you need to work out something with the DOT. You need to work out something with the Dover Plains Water Company.
Right.
Because the representative from the water company said twice at our meetings that it needs to come from under Route 22 and up your driveway/roadway, and not what was originally on the plan. And I don't believe that has changed.
No.
Okay. So that would also need to be, in your new submission.
Right.
You know,
And I know that
just
Ed
being
had spoke at the meeting too, and I called our engineer today, that there was a discrepancy on how far away our detention pond was. So what our engineer, he overlaid what was sent to him from Joe Berger. So our engineer now, because of this, is going to ask to go to the Board of Health and get the signed, like the official copies, because what we had to overlay on our plans was what Joe had sent us. So it was just like a picture of something that was on the thing, so
Okay.
we've got
You're
to do some
referencing
more
the
research.
100 feet from the
high water.
highway, okay,
So there's just stuff that we just didn't have time to
right.
get done.
Okay.
by the-
Chairman, we were also
And then,
asking
yes,
for them to address or look into the ability to put in a trail or a sidewalk.
right, I have a sidewalk coming up Route 22 that came up at the last meeting. I'm not sure why it was not considered 15 years ago, but certainly, you have 28 housing units there. People may certainly look to not drive their car into the Dover Plains unincorporated village area and just walk. So having a sidewalk obviously would help that
Okay.
happen.
Could we establish what the length, we talked about that earlier, what the board was thinking about, how far into the site the sidewalk should go? So there's not a misunderstanding? It's not the entire length.
No,
The board
it
was
was,
just thinking of going to the first side, basically to where the pond is and to the first parking areas, right?
Yeah, my recollection from the meeting was that we were looking at the sidewalk going to essentially where the 3 drainage pipes were going underneath the
Yeah,
roadway. So
yeah.
somewhere in that,
The bypass pipe.
yeah. Trying to see if there's a,
There you go.
yeah.
Right there in the middle is the bypass pipe.
So essentially from Route 22 along to
Right there.
about here. I think is, other members of the planning board, is that in line with your recollection of what we discussed?
Definitely.
Correct.
What is
Never
the reason for that specific length?
Well, it wasn't necessarily that specific length, is that the people that live here, they're going to park here. If they wanted to, the idea is to make it easier for them to walk into the, Dover Plains.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just wondering why.
Why to there?
Why end the sidewalk at that point? Why not bring it all the way up to where the residences will be?
Where is the end of the sidewalk here? Again, with all the lines, it's a little tough to determine. Does it go to the end of the buildings?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I don't recall.
Okay. So I guess work it out with your consultant. The idea was to have it essentially, people are going to walk. Is this dying? All the technology's failing us this evening. People may walk anywhere in front of the units here, and then if they were to walk down the road, I guess having some kind of crosswalk or something across the road, and so somehow connected to the 28 housing units.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to our engineer. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking if that's going to somehow affect the drainage, and like what you put underneath there, having a sidewalk, or if you could just, I'm just throwing this out there, like having a bike lane like they have in the city, like just having extending our blacktop a little bit wider and having like a designated walking area versus a sidewalk. I'm
That
not
could
saying
work,
that's
right?
what we would do, but
Sure.
just right now, I can't say, like, we
Sure.
can definitely put sidewalks in because I'm definitely not the engineer.
Right. Again, I don't think. Yeah,
Okay.
we need you to tell us, here's what we're looking to do.
Okay.
We're saying that we think it would benefit the people who eventually would live in this project to have a safe
Some type of way of, yeah,
way of walking,
not where the cars are going to
not
be.
just down the roadway where
Right.
cars are driving in it
Okay.
on them. Okay, were there any other concerns that anybody remembers at this time? Yes.
Just a reminder that the applicant needs to submit the erosion and sediment control permit
Right.
for the next meeting as well.
Renewal.
The erosion sediment control permit did expire, is that correct? Okay. And that was brought up at the previous meeting.
At least one.
Remember.
Okay.
Well, I watched it. I don't remember them talking
All
about
right.
that. Okay.
It might have been, yeah, it's been raised before.
Yeah, each of these permits have, expiration dates.
Right.
So, okay,
Oh, yeah.
all right. Anything further? Okay. Any members of the planning board have any comments, questions at this time? Holmes? Roman?
Nope.
Roland? Okay. For our attorneys, there was one issue that we had discussed in our pre-agenda meeting about the subdivision plat, and that there was a non-note on there about condominiums. So if you could explain that further?
Sure, I mean, we could go into an attorney-client session if you want to discuss it, but
Subdivision plat is a public document.
the neighbor to the project has raised the issue that when the subdivision plat was filed, there's sort of a ghost imprint of the underlying project on the subdivision plat. And the subdivision plat is what creates the lot lines. And so, as part of depicting the proposed project, it says proposed condominiums. And the question was, does that map note carry the force of law so that only condominiums can ever be built on this parcel? Or was it more of an informational note? And
Okay.
so, we've reviewed it, we believe it's informational, there was nothing, that we could find in the history of the project that said, this must be condos and only condos, and we're not approving it unless it's only condos. It's
And it was not contained within the notes section of the subdivision plat?
not in the note section, but the applicant proposed condos, and so the plan fixed it condos.
Okay, all right. Is there anything further legally for Stony Brook this evening?
At some point tonight, the board will have to decide whether they want to continue the public hearing to a date certain, or whether you want to adjourn it indefinitely, so that we don't have to come back month after month until we have some new information.
Okay, all right, thank you. Planner Lai?
So you already covered the planning comments that Aaron relayed to me, and we look forward to getting the plans. We'll have a memo once the new plans are received.
Okay, thank you. Engineer Berger?
Yeah, you covered the issues with the DOT, so I'm fine.
Okay. I didn't know if you needed to add anything further, or, okay. Thank you. All right, any members of the planning board have any comments or questions based on our consultants' thoughts? No? Okay. All right, so your present thinking, Ms. Flood, is that you should be able to submit by which deadline for,
Didn't you say it's a September 30th to be in the next?
so September
Oh, I
30th
didn't
for
even look up
October
here.
17th?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yes.
So you believe you could get in what needs to be submitted by September 30th
Yeah.
to be on the October 17th meeting? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I guess what we'll do is we'll open the public hearing, continue the public hearing, and then at the end of that, I'll make a motion that we continue it to October 17th. All right. Any further comments or questions before we go to the public hearing? All right, seeing none, I'll need a motion to continue the public hearing for Stony Brook Estates. Motion made by,
To continue.
to continue it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we continued it from the last meeting. So. Okay. Motion made by
So moved.
Member Roman, seconded by Member Holmes. All those in favor of continuing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, this public hearing by a vote of 5-0 with 2 absences is continued. I have the list here of people who would like to speak at the Stony Brook Estate public hearing. First we have, and what I'll do for both public hearings is I'll say the name and then the next name. That way the person who comes up next can just essentially get in line to speed things along. First we have Tom Whalen, and then we have Ed Yeno. And like I stated before, people will have 3 minutes. I'll give you a warning when you have 1 minute, and then we'll move on when 3 minutes is up. So, Mr. Whalen, and then Mr. Yeno, if you want to go on.
Good evening. I've got 4 points that I'll do my best to put in the record in 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Point one, as to the ingress and egress, when the plat was filed in 2008, this was many years before the pandemic. And here we are in a town that does not have a supermarket. I think that sidewalks certainly is something that has to be considered, but I think people to go out and buy groceries, they're not going to be on a sidewalk. They're going to be on the telephone, and it's now become totally commonplace to buy groceries and all retail items for Amazon or Walmart. There is going to be very intensive truck traffic delivery each and every day, and that should be factored. So that's point one.
Okay.
Point two is, as to the change from a condo project to a rental project, the board seems to be of the mindset that if the construction is identical, that there's no environmental issues raised. I would definitely disagree with this, because certainly as a matter of lending and in my practice, certainly it makes a whole lot of difference whether you're doing a transaction involving a condo or otherwise. And I do believe that if this project is approved for something other than condos, that of necessity, you're going to have a devaluation of real property values generally in the town and specifically to adjacent properties. In furtherance of that point, I would ask council to please take a look at Town Law Section 279, Subdivision 3, which sets forth that once the plat is filed, it shall be and become a part of the official map or plan of the town. So whether there's some discretion to do something other than condos, and certainly for years the sign was out that this was a condo project, the plat quite clearly has set forth on it condominiums, so I don't know how anything other than condominiums can be considered, particularly in light of this statute. Thirdly, there is an environmental issue here, even if the construction is the same. Council, please take a look at Chinese staff workers against the City of New York, 68 New York 2nd, 359. When there is a marked change in the neighborhood based on the project, then that is, and certainly here there's a demographic difference with condos or rentals, and certainly it's going to change the character of the neighborhood such that you could call this what should be nothing but an open preserve. One more point then.
Sure.
I've reviewed the minutes of this proceeding going back to 2003, and on April 22nd, 2003, Rebecca Thornton from the DLC said, and I quote, that there is a legal filed right-of-way through Whalen's property. The Stony Brook Estates subdivision has moved the right-of-way. This is simply untrue that there is a right-of-way, and I want to give over to you today. This is the title report that was issued by a title insurance company at the time that the town of Dover purchased the Stone Church. And item 6, survey shows a right-of-way known as Stone Church Lane to New York State Route 22 from the parcel within the middle section, that being the Randolph gravel, obliterated due to the mining of gravel. Rights of access over such right-of-way are no right of access over such right-of-way are insured. So right from the get-go, there was a title issue.
All right.
And by not reckoning the interest of the Whalens here, the inconvenience this causes, the cloud on our title, we are very much aggrieved.
Okay. Please submit that to the, excuse me, please submit that to the planning secretary. Thank you.
Question?
No, I was gonna ask about the court case, but that's okay.
Well,
What was the court case again? Chinese, was,
yeah,
No,
there is.
not that one. I was going to say, wasn't that title policy, isn't it been kind of overruled by the court's decision?
No.
okay, we're not going to litigate that at the planning board meeting, so, all right. Thank you, Mr. Whalen.
Thank you.
Mr. Eno?
Good evening, Medino. I reside at 3121 Route 22, Eno's Auto Body. Couple points of concern. Just want to bring it to the attention to the floods and to the engineer here that our septic system is what they consider a raised mound system because it's a fill section, and county law states that the pond is to be 100 feet from the toe of the slope, which is closer to the property line. So when they draw that up in the next set of plans, that should be taken into consideration. Few quick things about the DOT. Still in contact with them. I don't know. They told me that they spoke with the applicant, and there's many things that they have to overcome before this road is granted. By town code, this does not comply with any town codes, because in the town code it states that in order to have an access road onto a state highway in the dimensional table, it states that you must own 100 feet of road frontage along that road, which the applicant, I believe, only owns 70 feet, and which is not adequate. The other point of interest with the roadway being in where it is another town code is that the offset between two roads, in other words, Nelly Hill and this new road, is supposed to be 150 feet in between the two inside corners, the two closest sections, which it does not fit. It's probably maybe 60 to 70 feet, so I don't know how we can allow this project to continue forward. One, not meeting a town codes for the entrance being there, and it certainly, is a very hazardous spot.
Okay.
As far as the drainage issue that I've been having, I would like to think that the planning board and maybe the engineer would relook into that.
30 seconds.
Because it's been quite the issue, and we seem like we're not getting any response from the applicant or the town in trying to help us remedy this problem. Still to this date, we still do not yet have an accurate set of blueprints on what depicts actual conditions. There's been additions put on the firehouse. I know there have a open trench for the drainage. They may want to look into where the fire company's septic is, because it's rather close to what that open swale is going to be
Okay.
in between.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vino. We'll have somebody look into the concerns you brought up about the road frontage and proximity to the other town road. So, thank you. All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at this public hearing for Stony Brook Estates? Please come to the podium at this time and just state your name and address.
I am Heather Yino, 3121 Route 22, Yino's Auto Body.
I'm
My
just
first
I'll add
concern-
your name for you. So,
Sorry. My first
Of course.
concern is kind of like what Mr. Whalen said, but in the application, it stated that it was an HHA, a homeowners association, or HOA, sorry, homeowners association. It's not, it's rentals. So the application itself is wrong because it doesn't say rentals. Bless you.
excuse me. Sorry.
Second is the application, if you look at it, it's not even filled out all the way, and there's no signatures on it. Ronaldo's is, Stony Brook's is not. So it's not even complete application. Town laws say that you're supposed to have it posted that you're having a public hearing. There hasn't been a public hearing sign since July. There was none in August, there was none in September, but the only sign that got posted out there was for vote for sheriff. But nothing else is out there to let our town know that we're even having a public hearing if they don't have internet access.
Okay.
The other issue we have
be
is
addressed.
that, I agree their sidewalk should be there. But with the grass swale that they suggested to put in to not add more water to us, it's right against the septic of the firehouse as it is. Now you're going to add sidewalks, which we need, but do you even have room? For where the swales are next to that septic. Like my husband said, you don't have, our basin's still not on the plans. The firehouse isn't on the plans. Nothing is up to date on the plans itself.
Okay. So it would be on the applicant to cite where they believe the septic field would be, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
At the last meeting, it was stated that somebody was going to come out and survey and measure from our septic to the pond. Nobody showed up and did that. So those are my concerns.
All right. And that was going to be someone from the applicant. That wasn't going to be,
Applicants.
because you had already measured that. And
The applicant surveyor is going to,
yeah, okay.
because they add it to the plan, we don't.
My last concern is isn't there a deadline to where they have to start all over? Because it's been 18 months since they put this in and there's no building permit. Your town laws say that you have 18 months to put a building permit.
That's why they're here, yes, because they,
Yeah, but they're going to get an extension on it. Now we're going to do extension upon extension, you know, like,
right, so this wouldn't be an extension, this is, they're essentially reapplying.
okay.
You know, they haven't hardly changed much of anything, they're just taking what they have and reapplying with
I'm
it.
just trying to understand,
Sure,
that's all.
sure. Anything
Okay.
further?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no one else approaching the podium for Stony Brook Estates. What's up? Okay, and hearing from the applicant that they believe they can be back for our October 17th meeting. I'll need a motion to continue this public hearing to October 17th. Motion made by myself, seconded by Member Williams. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of continuing this public hearing to October 17th at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter as a public hearing can be held. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay. This public hearing is now continued. We will be moving on to Transco. So thank you, everybody. Stony Brook Estates. Okay. We'll wait for everybody to clear out. Not everybody. People to clear out for that. Some seats have opened up. If anybody would like to come have a seat.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stand there as long as the constables and building inspectors say you're not impeding emergency access. So.
Yes, I did.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to have discussion regarding NY Transco LLC, the Dover Electrical Substation. And then it'll be like Stony Brook Estates. Planning board members will make comments, ask questions, then our consultants, and then we'll go back to the public hearing. So let me just bring up the folder. Right, okay. And I'm not sure if there's anything else to bring up at this time. so.
That was there. You just have to go up to the top. Yeah.
Yep,
There you go.
okay. All right, you may proceed.
Good evening. My name is
Okay.
Anthony Mirando. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader, and I'm here for New York Transco this evening. With me tonight from Transco is also Sam Johnson and Shannon Baxavanis. In a few moments, Sam will come up and give you a brief presentation of the project and where it stands.
Okay.
We're pleased to be back here before the planning board again. As you know, we've been before you for many months working on this project, as well as coordinating and working with several agencies outside of the town of Dover. Over the past many months, we've submitted a lot of information explaining the project, providing responses to comments we received from the board, among others, consultants and staff members. But tonight is, as you know, a public hearing. So tonight, we're going to give our brief presentation. We're going to sit down and we're going to focus on listening to the comments we received from the public. Then we're going to take our time after to respond to those accordingly, so that everybody has the same information and there's no misunderstanding about the responses to those comments. First, a few housekeeping items. Marilyn might appreciate this. The town completed the notice for the public hearing, as you know. The planning board clerk mailed notice on September 6th. The planning board clerk also published the notice in the Poughkeepsie Journal. We provided a copy of the publication for the record this evening, just so that it's in the file. New York Transco also posted the notice signs on August 18th, both in 2 locations along the road frontage. We've also provided you with affidavits of posting for the record as well, just to confirm that. In addition, we mailed notice again to the the Dutchess County Department of Planning, and provided you with an affidavit of mailing as well, just again for the record. With respect to the project, I'll give you a very, very brief introduction and let Sam carry it the rest of the evening. This is referred to as Dover Station, is an electric substation. It is a proposal that is an important piece of electric infrastructure to support the New York State electric grid, the public and the community as a whole as well. Sam will take you through the site plan and some background on the project in a few minutes, but I just wanted to emphasize that this is an electric substation. It's an unoccupied public utility facility. It is not a power plant. It's not a generation facility. It's nothing like that, which we may have heard some people imply earlier. We appreciate the opportunity that the board has given us, as well as the public this evening, So now I will sit down and listen and let Sam walk you through the brief presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sam Johnson. I'm a senior project manager at New York Transco. Can you go to the first or second slide, I guess? So I thought I'd give you a brief introduction to New York Transco for those that haven't heard it before. We are a utility organization that focuses on bulk transmission, specifically improving the New York energy system to make it more reliable and efficient. Transco is a regulated utility that reports to both state and federal agencies. One thing that we are not is a distribution utility, so all of our assets are at the bulk transmission level. We own several assets, as are listed here in the bottom left, and we have several other assets that are in development today, and construction today as well. Next slide, please.
Okay.
So a little bit about why the project is needed. New York State is leading the country in its clean energy initiatives. It has a goal of 100% zero emission electricity by 2040. That's the generation of electricity by 2040. Very, very aggressive. It's a combination of solar, wind, hydro, nuclear, and other renewable energies. There are some biofuels and some other things that fit into those categories. So accompanying the development of the wind and solar assets is the need to upgrade the transmission system. Most of the electrical transmission system in the state was built in the 1980s or earlier, and it is aging. And with the change in generation assets, there's a need to stabilize the system in ways that were never contemplated, obviously, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. This map here represents the bulk transmission system within the state, and the colored assets, or the colored lines, the orange, the red, the blue, and the green, are active projects that are being undergoing today within the state of New York. All of Transco's projects, including the Dover Station, are being built to bring the clean energy that's being generated in upstate New York, where the smart path is shown there, into central and downstate New York.
Okay, just for everybody who can't quite see that, that's smart path and right here.
Yep.
Okay.
So most of the wind generation is around Lake Erie, and most of the and then inland, and a lot of new solar projects are being developed up in that way.
Okay.
And these projects that are shown here in the blue and the green are to bring that to market.
All right.
Next slide. So this is an overview of one of the packages that are in the site plan set. This is specifically the landscaping plan, but however, I can speak to almost everything that we go there. Just wanted to mention again that this station is part of the larger bulk energy system. This station specifically is designed to control the energy flow between New York State and Connecticut. So this is the main components of this particular facility are the three orange boxes that are here. These are phase angle regulator transformers. Two will be active, the two that Ryan showed there to begin with, and the third one is a spare.
That's the spare.
That's the spare there, yes, correct.
Okay.
The site is in the town's commercial, industrial, and office mixed-use district. It is a corner lot on Route 22 and Route 26, Cricket Hill Road. The site is 16.3 acres. It extends down to the bottom there a little bit further and across into the corner from this particular area. So historically, it has been used for auto part recycling, warehouse, and office space. The particular site meets the location criteria that is required for this project, which is the proximity to the existing transmission line, which is just to the north, sufficient space for the needed facilities, direct access to state routes for the installation, operation, and maintenance of the facility, no impacts to resources such as regulated wetlands, rare, threatened, and endangered species, cultural resources, historical resources, all of which have been determined by the appropriate state and federal agencies, and it has limited proximity to neighborhoods. As I mentioned earlier, or Anthony mentioned earlier, this is a substation. This is not a power generating facility. There will be no emissions associated with this facility. The location and layout of the substation is based on extensive analysis and design. It complies with all applicable town code provisions. It complies with state and federal infrastructure standards. It complies with state and federal agency design standards. And in one case, Transco has worked with the Department of Environmental to clear up a debris pile that's in the buffer zone that we wouldn't have otherwise gone in. So we've gone a little bit further than we needed to, but we thought it was the proper thing to do in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So once complete, the Dover station will have a fenced footprint of approximately 5 acres. It will include the transformers plus all supporting electrical equipment such as a control unit, lightning masts, breakers, buswork, things that you would see in a typical substation as you drive by. All equipment will be located outside of the required 150-foot setback from both Route 22 and Route 26. And post-construction, the facility will be remotely operated and will only have maintenance activities on site, so limited traffic. There will be one access point from Route 22, as you can see on the bottom of the picture here. It will not require water or sewer, and there will be no lights during normal operation. Lights will only be used for maintenance activities and or emergency events. From a construction perspective, the project will take about 1 year. About 5 months of that is site grading. 5 months is the building of the electrical components, and then 2 months of commissioning and testing.
Okay.
Next slide. So again, this is a view on Route 22, approximately where the new road will go. And if you could go, and anyway, where possible, we are going to be leaving the natural screening, limiting clearing activities to keep the natural trees and shrubs. The existing red fencing that you see on the property will be removed, and actually the new fence will be another 50 to 75 feet behind where that existing fence is today. Mm-hmm. We are going to plant over 250 trees and shrubs to provide so that we can reduce the visibility of the substation. And many of the trees and shrubs that we're planting will be mature. So what we've provided in the next 2 slides are the at planting and then at the 5 year. So if you want to just scroll and show those. So that's at planting.
Okay.
Leaf off conditions. And that's at 5 year leaf off conditions. And again, all of these are contained within the visual simulations that we submitted as part of our application.
All right.
Next slide.
Okay.
Yep. So as Anthony has mentioned, the project has been under extensive review by the town, by the planning board, by its consultants, as well as state and federal agencies. And just to hit on it, this project is not a power plant or part of Cricket Valley Energy Center in any way whatsoever. It's an electric substation that will further the New York State energy transition as we go to this 100% zero emission power. That's it.
Okay.
Last slide is our contact information. So if you feel you want to reach out to us, please do. And now I look forward to listening to the public participation.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So so we're going to go through planning board comments, questions at this time, and then our consultants, and then we'll go to the public hearing. I don't anticipate will take very long since we've had you here a number of times. So you've made it very clear this is not generating power. This is a substation. Can you point to any other examples of substations that people could look at to know what will be going on behind the trees that you have there?
Sure.
I mean, you know, somewhere in a 50-mile radius of here that someone might say, oh, I've driven by there, and that's what that looks like.
So if you've been to downtown Pauling and you take the back route in, I can't think of the road, but there is a substation facility on the left side of what Main Street extends into.
Okay.
That station is fairly representative of what that is. That's actually a nice egg station that would be transforming bulk energy into distribution energy.
Okay.
So the station there, it's approximately 3 times the size of that station there and would have 3 transformers instead of 1.
So this is driving north out of the village of Pauling
That's correct, yes.
on the right side near where Perino Greenhouse
Yep.
is? Okay. And then if you keep going north, it becomes West Dover Road and then goes into the town of Dover. Okay.
Correct.
All right. And what's the approximate cost of this substation?
About $80 million.
$80 million, okay. Now, a couple other things on the plan here. So these are the 2 operational units.
Correct.
And then this is here as an on-site backup.
That's correct.
You've explained at a previous meeting that if one of these goes down, you have this on-site so you can quickly replace.
Yeah, it's
As quickly as, I mean, quickly, you can, so what's quickly, just so we have.
probably a 2 or 3 month process.
Okay,
Where we'd have to remove the existing facility.
Right.
Or whichever one is broken.
right.
Then you have to lift that transformer and move it into place.
So if
it's
this
not-
wasn't here, then it would take how long to replace one of those
If the
two?
spare wasn't there?
Yeah, if the spare was not there.
The manufacturing process is over a year.
Okay. So you need it there on site in case one of these 2 fail?
Correct.
Okay, how often does that happen?
Failures? Oh, very, very rare.
Very rare, okay. But you have it there just in case, okay. And then what is this blue structure?
That's a control unit. So basically what that does is all of the wires in the system will enter that particular building. It houses all the relays, houses all of the communication devices, and effectively that's the brain power, if you will, of the station itself.
Okay, so it's a small building?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and then 2 things that you didn't bring up were these
Sorry,
yellow
yeah,
dots here.
yep. So the yellow guys over there are the transmission structures, and from there they would go to the north to connect into the Con Ed right-of-way. We're not building any new transmission lines associated with this project. It's connecting into the existing line that's there.
Okay. And what you're proposing is that there would be a tower here, a tower there, an additional tower north of Cricket?
Yeah, if you actually draw the straight line between the two,
Okay.
and where that connects into.
So it would go from this pole to this pole across?
Correct.
Okay. So you would be constructing 3 poles? Okay.
Correct.
Now, I brought up, and it's been brought up by others, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, about not having these, but burying the lines underneath underneath Cricket Hill Road. And you were asked to consider what that would entail. So if you could explain what that would entail.
Yeah, so we're almost finished that analysis, and we'll be prepared to submit that to the board at the next meeting. Basically, we're looking at the feasibility of whether it can be done, and then any other impacts from a construction perspective or an impacting wetland perspective.
Okay. I don't recollect when I brought that up, but it wasn't the last meeting, it was,
Last meeting's the meeting before. Yep.
okay, but was that June, July?
Well, I know I was here, so.
A few months ago?
2 months ago, probably.
2 or 3 months ago? Okay.
Yep.
So you haven't finished that yet?
Correct.
In 2 or 3 months?
Correct.
Okay. And you will have that finished by when?
In time for our next submittal, whether that's the 3rd meeting or the
Okay.
17th meeting. Yeah.
It's like your attorney wants to say something now.
No, I just,
Oh, okay.
I do, but Sam can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. No, I think also another point that they were looking at, to your point, was there's a risk and reliability issue that goes along with any undergrounding of lines of this nature. Just given, as Sam just mentioned, the time it takes if there's a fault or something underground is a outage duration that creates a significant level of concern, because it would take a lot longer to deal with it, as opposed to hours and days to fix a line, as opposed to months more, to months
Okay.
or more to fix it.
So you're saying it would take, as the attorney who doesn't do this stuff, you're saying it would take months?
On information and belief.
Uh-huh.
No, but
Okay.
but all kidding aside, that through the discussions I've had, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Well, like we said,
But that will be in the report that you submit. the
yeah,
analysis.
we'll provide a written response to that.
All right.
And just like we'll get a lot of questions and comments tonight, that we're going to take our time and listen to them and then
Sure.
respond.
Okay. All right. And, all right, I think that's it from me. We'll go through the planning board members and then the consultants. Member Villano, do you have any comments, questions?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Member Roman?
No, I think I want to see us give as much time to the public as
Yes.
possible.
Member Holmes? Okay. Member Williams?
The only question I have is, at no point will those three work simultaneously, the three?
That's correct. The third one is not electrically connected to the station. It has electric in the sense that it keeps the oil circulating within, but there's no power being generated and/or phased in any way whatsoever. So it's only the two.
And is this project set, will not be expanded, or there
Yeah,
cannot be any?
the way the site is built, there's no room for expansion.
You won't be coming back 5, 10 years from now like, oh, we want to do this now.
There's no room. There's lots of wetlands on this site, and we avoided them completely.
Okay, thank you.
Member Williams, anything? Okay, thank you. I guess just one more thing. Is it, because just something you said earlier and with respect to the system, is this sited east of Cricket Valley Energy because that puts it between Cricket Valley Energy and the state line?
That's correct.
Okay. So the idea was to put it somewhere between Cricket Valley Energy and the transmission lines before they get to Connecticut?
That's correct.
And this is the location that your company found?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we'll go through our consultants. Legal?
Good evening. The question has been raised, and you mentioned briefly that there would be about 5 weeks, or 5 months, I should say, of grading of the site. Does grading the site include, by any chance, damaging or blasting bedrock, or in any way affecting sort of the underlying strata and even the aquifer?
I mean, ultimately, that's up to our construction contractor. We've not chosen yet. We have proactively said that we would like to include blasting as part of the plan, just because of the type of bedrock that we found. It is marble. I think everyone knows that this whole area is marble. But yes, it is contemplated potentially that we would use blasting.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, thank you. Planning?
We submitted a detailed comment memo for the August meeting and have no further comments at this time.
At this time? Okay, thank you. Engineering?
No comments at this time.
Okay. All right. No one from the planning board has anything further based on our consultants? All right, we're going to move on to the public hearing. Thank you, Johnson. So I get the lists. And all right, and if I incorrectly say your name, please, I do apologize in advance. I do have a last name that gets misspoken frequently, so I think you'll understand. So like I said, 3 minutes for each person. You'll hear the timer go off. I'll look to give you a 1 minute warning when you have 1 minute to go. You're welcome to submit comments and questions in writing. And we will be continuing this public hearing to some future meeting, which I guess at the end of the public hearing time tonight, we'll see what date that will be. So, and I'll read 2 names off at a time. And so first is Lindsley Sheffield? Sheffield, thank you. And Charlie Quimby.
You have to open.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, thank you. Need a motion to open the public hearing. Motion made by Member Holmes, seconded by Member Delano. All in favor of opening public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Public hearing is now open by a vote of 5-0 with 2 absences. First, we have Lindsley Sheffield, and then Charlie Quimby.
This is pretty much an informative statement that I have, not too much of a question thing.
Okay.
New York Transco has partnered with New York Power Authority, NYPA, to develop innovative electric transmission solutions for delivering offshore wind energy into New York grid. Despite its many advantages, offshore wind farms have some weighted drawbacks. The most superficial of these is that are complaining of a violation of natural beauty of locations. Due to these complaints, there are pressures to place these farms far removed from shore, so not to be visible. This adds to the second drawback, maintenance costs and insulation operations. Maintenance costs are already much higher for offshore wind turbines, since more resources and infrastructure are needed to install and maintain wind turbines at sea. The sea is a much more hostile environment than land, leading to shorter turbine life cycles and greater need for maintenance and additional drawbacks. Efficiency wind power generation can never be 100% as wind strength rises and falls sporadically. In order for those turbines to most successfully, the range of wind speed in which they can operate needs to be expanded. For wind to soft or strong, not even taking into consideration the maintenance costs of offshore wind farms, and roughly the twice as land-based ones, costing approximately $4,600 a kilowatt, while land-based costs are around $2,400 a kilowatt. This translates into a higher cost per joule compared to those sources, made this energy production less appealing to both the consumer and the producer.
You have about a minute.
This energy is more expensive, unreliable, and other sources. It will be very difficult for it to take over the production of fossil fuels. New York Transco has partnered with it, and I already said that part of it. And they're also thinking about proposing another wind farm off the coast of Maine, which many lobster fishermen are kind of concerned about losing maybe their employment due to that. So my personal belief is that wind farms are not a sufficient reliable source of energy for long term. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next we have Charlie Quimby, followed by Stancy Duhamel.
Good evening. Charlie Quimby, 81 Cricket Hill Road, Dover Plains. Dear Chairman Cortina, board members, our town is being taken advantage of and has been for many years, some would say decades. And it seems to me that some have resigned themselves to the idea that we cannot stop this. We cannot stop these large companies from coming and destroying our town, jeopardizing our health, safety, quality of life, and property values. We are almost forced to accept undesirable proposals that our more affluent neighboring towns have rejected. I ask why. Over the last 9 months, our group, Concerned Citizens of Dover, has gathered nearly 1,000 signatures, both online and on paper. We have received questions and concerns from residents. We have shared them with the town and the consultants. We were told that prior to the public hearing, the questions should be submitted in writing, which we have done many times. At each meeting, we've been disappointed that almost none of our questions or concerns were addressed. With that said, here are some of the concerns which have been previously raised to the town and consultants and still unanswered. We have repeatedly asked that the town designate Transco a Type 1 action, issue a positive declaration, and require a draft environmental impact study, which would ensure a more thorough review. Will the planning board do that? Consider the environmental justice impacts. Dover is an environmentally and financially disadvantaged town, according to the DEC, EPA, and New York State. Transco has argued this and skewed the data to their benefit. Our planning board, Attorney Polidoro, Planner Werner, must consider the existing cumulative negative impacts in the town as a whole, and must include the public in the decision-making progress, as required. DEC cannot enforce their EJ policy on this project because Transco skirted the criteria for DEC permits.
1 minute.
With that said, it is in the town's hands to enforce the EJ policy. I have already provided the town and consultants with agency contacts and extensive EJ information. A decommissioning bond must be required if this project moves forward to ensure that when it eventually meets its end of life, which it will, that there will be a responsible party for the dismantling and remediation of the site. Without this, it could bankrupt the town. This is in our town code, so use it. We are demanding a balloon test. We cannot rely on Transco simulations from select viewpoints. All residents should be able to visualize the impacts of the proposed project, including those that are not able to access the simulations online or see this from a projector screen at a meeting. What will Transco pay in taxes? Does anyone have an answer on that? On other projects, these large companies always get the better deal. Even if Transco were to pay a large sum, realize that all surrounding property values and their assessments will decrease drastically, and it would likely be a wash for the town. And regardless of the amount of taxes, is our town for sale?
Mr. Quimby, please finish your thought.
Okay, well, I think that's about it.
Okay. You're welcome to submit all that in writing to
Sure.
the secretary.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Quimby. Next we have Stancy Duhamel, followed by David and Iris P.
Chair Courtine, members of the Planning Board, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to speak and share some of my concerns. And to the extent that it informs your decision-making, I appreciate that. So I want to start out by saying that while I believe in climate change, I am agnostic to the source of fuel when it comes to this industrial energy complex that's expanding in our town. I don't care if it's fossil fuel. I don't care if it's renewables. We have so many barriers to access in this town, and New York State looks at us like there's no barrier to access. And Transco says they're not part of Cricket Valley Energy. Well, I look at this whole complex as a conglomerate with a single purpose of delivering electricity from upstate to downstate. It doesn't benefit us at all. And actually Transco just cited itself why this project is here, because it's in between Cricket Valley Energy and the Connecticut border. I brought a map of the Con Ed right-of-way. People can look at it. They can't see it from there, but I can hang out afterwards. You can see where this right-of-way goes right up to Connecticut, see if it crosses your road, see if you can see it, and tell me whether or not it affects you. Another reason that these utility companies, industrial energy companies, which they are, talk about why we should accept these projects, because they're supporting New York State's carbon neutral mandates. Did we vote to support New York State's carbon neutral mandates? No.
1 minute.
So why are they using that as an excuse or a selling point? The solar projects, they get a subsidy from New York State. I walked around the Wingdale Solar. I asked the guy, are they sharing that subsidy with us for being here? Of course not. But, you know, that's a legit question. Right now, I want to talk about jobs. I don't have very many minutes, 1 minute left. But a lot of these projects, including Transco, cite jobs as a positive impact to mitigate the negative impacts. How do we measure that? They didn't measure it on Cricket Valley Energy. I called. No, they didn't. Who collects the data? They don't know. I should suggest the categories. Well, I have a lot of categories. How many jobs were there? How many jobs went to people in Dover? What were those paying jobs that went to people in Dover? How much, you know, how long were those jobs for? Were they full-time? So anyway, I have a list. If anybody has ideas about what stats you would like to see from DEC, we can all combine and put it together. How many positions? Were they filled? What was the salary? You know, on and on.
Okay.
So don't
Dan,
Thank you.
are you submitting that map to the board for the
I already
record?
have. I've submitted a number of times.
Okay. Thank you. All right. David and Iris, followed by Jim Utter.
Good evening. My name is David Pereira. I had no idea that I was signing a sheet to say anything.
Okay.
I thought it was an attendance sheet.
You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. You're welcome to say anything. You have,
Yes.
you have
My
3
question
minutes.
is, it won't take that long.
Okay.
As the board, can't you just say no to this as soon as it is proposed to you?
Okay, so I
Years
could,
ago,
I
whatever
I
that
can answer
was.
that. So a planning board cannot just look at an application and just simply say no, because that would, the legal phrasing they use is that would be arbitrary and capricious of the board to just say, we don't like this, go away. That would open up the town for a very large and easy lawsuit because we didn't even consider the project. So no, we cannot just say no.
So at what point can you say no?
I'll leave that up to the attorney.
So in general, the planning board is not an enforcement body and it's not a legislative body. It doesn't make the rules and it doesn't enforce the rules. All it can do is evaluate whether a plan that comes before it satisfies the rules that were created by your elected officials or the predecessors of your elected officials. So we have the zoning law, and the zoning law allows certain uses in certain places so long as certain criteria is met. So the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate that all the required criteria is met, and then the planning board evaluates whether that criteria is met. The planning board cannot willy-nilly deny a project. It can only deny a project if that project does not meet the criteria set forth in the code.
Thank you.
Do you, just to give you, like, do you watch baseball at all?
Yes.
Okay, so we're like umpires. Okay, we call balls and strikes based on the rules that are given to us. We don't make up the rules. We just say, you know, this is what we're seeing, and this is what we feel is the call. And, you know, our hope is that we do the very best we can with the information that we have, and that we're not, you know, Angel Hernandez. So,
Yeah, it's just,
if you're a baseball fan.
I'm at 169 Cricket Hill Road, and I've been here for about 33 years, and I come from the city, and so this is all new to us, and that's why I asked, why can't you just say no?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So just, was there anyone else who signed up? Mr. Artie, please come to the podium and just give me a moment. Was there anyone else who signed up that did not want to speak? Just, I see some names crossed out. You did cross out your name. I just want to make sure someone else didn't cross out your name. Okay, I see Sue and Steve Hanneman do not want to speak. Just want to be clear. Okay. And Jessica Wade and Aaron Wade do not want to speak. Okay. And everybody else wants to speak. Okay, great. And if there's anyone else who came in later, didn't get to sign up, you're still welcome to speak after we get through the list. We'll just need to add your name to the list. Mr. Utter, welcome.
Thank you.
Get 3
Appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about this. I'm chairman of Friends of the Great Swamp right now, and we own the parcel immediately adjacent to the Transco parcel.
Hmm?
And so we've been interested. We've talked to them a few times. But I'm looking at it today from one particular aspect, and that is the aspect of biodiversity and rare species. We are in an area that has a really amazing biodiversity assemblage, and the watershed of the Great Swamp and the Great Swamp itself favor rare species, and we have several that are very uncommon. And part of this is because we have marble bedrock, and all of you know marble bedrock and how it affects your water. Well, it doesn't have many nutrients in it, and so if you're going to grow there, you have to be able to do it with very little nutrition from the plants. And it also changes the pH of the soil, and it increases it, which makes a lot of the other nutrients less available. And it gets to us from the rock. It comes through the marble, and it dissolves some of that as it's going, and then it flows out in seeps, sometimes in bubbling pools. But that's what shapes much of our area here. And that's different than most places. It really is a rare kind of system. And the ecosystems that develop from it are also rare. And that means that species that live there are rare, just because there aren't that many places that they can make it. And they tend to be in isolated patches. And with our roads and everything, they can't move from one area to the next very easily. And if they're aquatics, or at least doing something in the water, they may be able to move along stream channels. But it is very difficult for them to do that. We are concerned about the impact of Transco on the biodiversity, the species that we have. We have 7 rare, either endangered or threatened New York State species on our preserve. And we have a trust that we are going to be able to protect them. We are trying to improve habitat so that we can...
Finish your thought, please, Mr. Rutter.
That's a long thought. I was starting out with an hour lecture. And I guess
You have 30 seconds.
All right, now come on. At any rate, 2 things that we asked for right at the beginning, and which we are disappointed in what has come back to us. One thing that would affect this is the dump area where they pushed all the cars and their parts and everything else off the edge of the marble plate the junkyard was on. And so we asked that that be evaluated as to whether or not there are dangerous chemicals in there that are coming out and going into the water and affecting the plants and animals, and especially in the aquatic systems. Unfortunately, DEC let us down on this, as did the applicant and as did the planning board, because they went out there and inspected it and, you know, kicked the leaves and stuff and looked for stains and smelled for odors. Now, what the hell are you going to do? Analyzing the pollutants in the water with a visual and a smell test? Come on now. Somebody has got to do some damn analyses here.
Okay.
And everybody sort of dropped it. You've got your permits from DEC. I just can't believe it. I tried all day to get somebody over there, nail them if I could. And I didn't get anybody to respond to me. I had to leave just messages.
Mr. It might be, maybe it's Dr. Utter, I'm sorry. Your time is up.
Last point, and I just give it and drop. We asked that the applicant or the planning board evaluate the blasting that's going to go on in the marble, because that can result in cracking, fracturing, increasing the fracturing, and our valuable fen, which is specialized wetland there, would actually be drained if it went through and cracked and so on. And that's what we really wanted to see. And there was a little bit of analysis of it that a lot of it's broken up, marble's broken up, and it's not. But we don't know how much dynamite they're going to be using. We don't know what, and they don't tell you. So I was failed.
No.
Failed to get the right thing. But thank you.
No, thank you for your comments. And again, as was stated, people are welcome to come back at follow-up public hearings, and I know you will. Thank you. And just so, this is the wetland that you're, Dr. Utter? This is the wetland you're referencing here?
No.
And then it connects to the other wetlands here?
No, it's the big wetland.
This wetland here?
I would like to know, it sounded like Sam said that they filled in, or that they had taken the debris out of the end, and which is right above that wetland.
That's one of the things that was discussed with Transco, was there was a lot of tires there.
Yeah.
More than 100, I would say.
But don't go in, let us know when you're gonna do that. There are box turtles that hibernate in there.
Okay, we're not going to discuss where anything is in particular. We had that problem at the last meeting.
They're a special concern species, they're not.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, next we have Canon Hersey.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then after that is Bill Kish.
First, I'd just like to thank you all for, for holding this.
Mhm.
My father moved here. I was 4 years old when he moved here, and I live here with my 3 daughters. And he died in 2018, and he was less vigorous at the end of his life, but one of the things he expressed a real sadness about was the building of the Cricket Valley plant, and that it was such a failure of the community to stand together. And I would like to just express that, these projects need a proper soil analysis, a lot of environmental study before you move these projects to the phase they are, and, what will be left for future generations if we continue to build into this community things that don't serve this community. This project doesn't serve this community. It doesn't bring jobs. It's not, other than perhaps some early phase construction. There's no on-site employees. It's, I don't know the tax ramifications or deal, but those are things that, as a community, we should discuss and look at. And just want to thank you for holding this process, and I'll try to participate more than he was able to at the end of his life, so that my children have a, healthy environment to live within.
Okay, thank you. Just before Bill Kish goes, if our attorney could just maybe give a overview of kind of how the process may proceed. We have this public hearing now, or we're going to have another public hearing. What happens with these public comments, questions, and...
Sure. So everything that's said or sent to the board is all part of the planning board's record, and the applicant will be required to respond to each of the comments in one way or the other. They might compile comments under one subject heading and do a general response, but the applicant will need to respond to all of the issues raised. And so it might not be the next meeting or the meeting after, but at some point in the process, after the public hearing is closed, all of the comments will be responded to.
Thank you.
Also, the public hearing, the chairman has already indicated, will be extended, so tonight is not the last opportunity to submit your comments, either verbally or in writing, and it will be ongoing for at least one more month, possibly longer.
Yeah, we need to see what, makes sense. It is a determination of the majority of the planning board. I would suggest that whatever comments or questions you have, it would make sense to get them in sooner rather than later, just to give everyone more time to give a full consideration to what you're saying. So, Bill Kish?
Thank you. My name is Bill Kish, and I live in the town northeast, and you might be wondering why a guy from Millerton is here at this public hearing. But I actually have a number of friends who live in Dover, and they know that I'm an engineer, so they can talk to me about infrastructure stuff all day long, and I'll be happy to listen to them. And so I've been listening to them for years, starting with the Cricket Valley Power Plant, and I certainly sympathize with the people here who, not everybody I'm sure, but a lot of people feel that the town got a raw deal with Cricket Valley. And that the town is on the verge of getting a bunch of more raw deals with this Transco project and the hydrogen project, which seems to be in the works. So back in January, when I first heard about this project and I was talking with my friends, I called up Transco. I spoke to Shannon over there, who I understand is in the room somewhere, and tried to get a clear understanding of what the project was. And it turns out that this is not just a substation. Most of the substations that you'll find around, including the one that was referenced, are intended to convert either typically a higher voltage down to a lower voltage where it can be distributed locally. You have these super high tension lines, and you have these lower tension lines that can go out to localities. This thing is called a phase shifter or a quadrature booster. And its purpose is basically to block the flow of energy from coming back, I believe in this case, from Connecticut. So this thing actually seems to be addressing a dispute between the New York Power Authorities, New York ISO, and ISO New England. At least that's what I asked Shannon about, and she said, oh, you'll have to ask New York ISO. I said, New York ISO doesn't answer any questions, and they don't. I'm asking you to please get an answer from Transco as to what the purpose of this plant is. Never was able to get a response despite trying to reach out to her multiple times. The other question that I asked, which I think is really important, is why is this project being considered on this side of Route 22 when there's a perfectly good industrial site on the other side of Route 22 with a lot of empty land where you could park this thing? And she did not give me an answer to that question either. So I don't really have any answers. What I do have is these questions, and two additional ones popped into my mind during this meeting. I'll get out of your way. The first one is at the very beginning of the meeting in discussion about the endangered species. It's obvious that Dover does have, as the gentleman from Friends of the Great Swamp said, a tremendous biodiversity, and that's your legacy. That's what you have right now. And that can go away very quickly. And based on what Charlie Quimby said, you guys really should consider this to be a type 1 action. So if it's not too late, I urge you to do that. And the last final thought is, it's very dangerous when lawyers try to pretend to be engineers. I would say, when was the last time that you heard anybody saying that burying power lines was bad for reliability?
All right, thank you. Next we have Jennifer Lazaro and then Rick Blanco.
Good evening, I'm Jennifer Lazaro. I vested 21 years here in Wingdale and Dover Plains. My first home was on Cricket Hill. When I first moved here, I never even thought about attending a town meeting, and within the past year, my eyes have been widely opened. I've done a tremendous amount of research and met with people from the town, community members, colleagues, and I've learned quite a bit. So I just had a few short points I wanted to make. One, just speaking to the point tonight about New York becoming 100% green or what have you by 2040, I think that's a great goal for New York State, but I don't think it should be at the sacrifice of our community. The second point I wanted to make was, thinking back to, I think it was the June meeting, I was unable to attend, but I watched it virtually. And I know Mr. Cortine, you had mentioned about burying the lines, and it's been mentioned a few times this evening. And when you initially posed that question, it was almost laughed at. The phrase, I believe, was something along the lines of, we don't do that in rural communities, we do that in cities such as New York City. And I think that our children and our community is equally as important as New York City and other communities. So to quickly dismiss that and do a little bit of research, I don't think it really adequately answers that concern we have. So I was hoping to hear that answered this evening. So I know many of us here tonight and the hundreds of people we've all networked with in the community over the last 6 months or so are eagerly awaiting that answer. So as in response to the comment about risk and reliability, the risk and reliability, I'm sure, is very, very minuscule compared to the eyesore it's going to create to our community, as well as the devaluation of our properties. There's one more point I just want to make, and perhaps it'll be answered in the next portion of the meeting, the comprehensive plan, which I didn't even know what that was a year ago, but now I do know. And I brought some samples from maps I printed off of the town website. I know we're redoing the comprehensive plan because it's outdated, and I understand from our engineer who shared some thoughts with us a while back that you were looking for community input, and I gave that with some board members over a couple-hour period of time earlier this year. And I'm just wondering, when I looked at the current plan on the website, I believe it's page 120, there's a map. It uses a different color coding system than the proposal I had brought to our earlier meeting, which showed in, I'll use hot pink, I think was the color, of all the different regions of our community that were being considered to become zoned commercial/industrial mixed use. When I looked at the map this week to see, how much of our input was taken into consideration, I can't compare the two. So I did bring them with me this evening, but they're also on the town website. So I'm curious, perhaps you could address what the difference is between the proposal that was online back in the spring and the one that's on there this evening. I'm just curious if we were able to minimize that, because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but by increasing all of the commercial/industrial usage space, we're inviting this into our community. There's a huge difference between commercial use, in my mind anyway, and industrial. So like many of us, we're looking for positive growth. We're looking to improve, residential quality of life, the commercial shopping, that sort of thing, cafes and whatnot. But we're not looking for the type of growth that benefits other communities in which we are just a host community. So I'm looking for positive growth for our community, not being the host for somebody else's benefit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just to one point you made. So after this public hearing, the planning board will have a discussion of the comprehensive plan update. It's a document that a committee created by the town board has created. The planning board has a legal obligation to comment on the proposal. It's entirely going to be a town board document, and the town board will hold one, possibly more than one public hearing at an appropriate time. So we as the planning board won't be holding a public hearing on the comprehensive plan because it's not ultimately our document. It's again becomes the essentially the foundation for any changes in the zoning, including the maps. So what you'll see if you stick around after Transco is we're just going to discuss largely just things I went in looking it over, thought maybe this should be this or that should be that. So that's what you'll see after this public hearing. So,
Rick Blanco. I'm not an engineer or a lawyer, but I am a lineman. So, to get underground, it is very reliable. It's the restoration is the issue. Can it go underground? Yes, it can. It's going to cost you millions to get rid of those towers and for them to go underground.
Mr. Blanco, I'm sorry, if you could just...
That's why they don't want to...
I won't be able to hear it if you're not...
For the price of what it's going to cost.
Yes.
For them to go under the ground, it's going to cost them a ton.
Sure.
Okay? It's doing nothing for the community, like you said about those transformers. If one's going, two's going, if all three are going, it's going to do nothing for us. We're not tied into them. We have one circuit out of Dover Plains that you guys are on, two out of Wingdale. With everything they're building here, does nothing for this community, power grid, reliability-wise. We have no ties with them. There's no way for us to tie our feeders with their feeders. We are completely separate from them. We're completely separate from Edison. And so that's that. And anything that Edison's got their name on, 1985, I believe, they were convicted with a felony because of the Gramercy Park thing. Anything Con Ed's got their name on, I would double check. That's all I got to say.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Next we have Ben, it looks like Ben Schwartz. Okay. And then if there's anyone else who would like to speak at this public hearing, who has not spoken, you can queue up behind Ben Schwartz.
Yeah, I think a lot of, what I'd like to say has been said already, and I think, folks around here are getting more educated. My name is Ben Schwartz. I've lived in Wingdale for 7 years.
Excuse me. Sorry, sir. If you could just remove your hat, please.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
And, yeah, basically, I just wanted to point out that Transco is owned by National Grid US, and National Grid US is owned by Transco National Grid, which is out of London, England. It's one of the largest energy companies on the planet. It's owned by private investors, and they have the money to bury the lines. They have the money to do all these things that, folks have been requesting, but they're being cheap and they're being disrespectful to the community. And so I'd really advise, the town of Dover is representing us to, pressure and get them to do these things. At the very least, make sure the community is taken care of because they have the resources. You can just look at their stock profile. They're a very wealthy company. And that'll set a precedent for future energy projects that people will be more respectful to the town than Cricket Valley was, for example. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. All right, if there's anyone who hasn't spoken at this public hearing and would like to do so, now would be the time. Please go to the podium. All right, seeing no one approaching the podium, if we could just have a representative from Transco come back to discuss when we would see you again. All right, so, well, you won't be here October 3rd since the deadline was this past Friday. So, will you have anything further to give us before the September 30th deadline for the October 17th meeting?
Well, of course, we want to review all the comments we got tonight.
Sure.
We would like to say we would.
Okay.
So I'd like to have the chance for that, but I certainly want to make sure that if for some reason we can't, I don't want to offend the board in any way or the public. So
All right.
Can we set that, and then it may need to be adjourned depending on if we get there?
Well, if we set the public hearing, or rather continue the public hearing for October 17th, as you saw with Stony Brook, even though they didn't submit something, we're still going to have a public hearing. There's clearly people from the public who want to speak and give us their very important, thoughts. So, I mean, I'm inclined to continue to October 17th, and I would hope that you would do what you can in the next 11 days to answer as much as you can. Okay.
Yeah, no,
All
absolutely.
right, so I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to October 17th, 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the planning board can hold the public hearing. That motion is made by myself, seconded by Member Williams. All right, any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, all those in favor of continuing the public hearing to October 17th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, this public hearing by vote of 5-0 with 2 absences is continued. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So anyone who would like to speak at that public hearing, there'll be a sign-up sheet. We typically have the room opened about 6:30, 6:40, 6:30, if we can. It's not an attendance sheet, so just please sign up only if you want to speak. Anyone who has already spoken is certainly welcome to speak again. My suggestion would be, if you haven't spoken yet, maybe you want to get here a little early and sign up near the top of the sheet. Okay, so let me pass this back down to the secretary.
Thank you.
All right. And then, okay, so the town comprehensive plan. Let me give everyone 30 seconds to vacate the room if you don't want to be here for the comprehensive plan. Thank you. Where can I bring up the comprehensive plan?
I have it on there. I can find it for you.
Okay, yes, we could. Thank you.
Yeah, I have it
Just
on
because
my-
it's just what I said, so. Remember, everybody can see.
Want the whole comprehensive?
Well, just to bring it up, just in case there's a, people want to look at what it says.
Take it off. I know. We didn't test that.
I forgot how much I do.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, remember you were in my.
Oh my God, I envy you.
Good. I just got back
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Hello.
Thank you.
Colorado.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. Say hi to the.
Fruity, I will. Absolutely. I'll tell her, that's all you.
Okay. Let's continue.
All right, so at this time, planning board will have a discussion amongst planning board members regarding the comprehensive plan. Like I said before, this is in compliance with New York State law that planning boards give a consideration to towns when they look to update their comprehensive plan. So the goal at the end of this is for the planning board to vote on a recommended document that would then be sent to the town board, as this is what the planning board thinks of the proposed comprehensive plan. So let me bring up the, okay, the proposed comprehensive plan can be found on the town's website. It's based on taking the 1993 Dover Master Plan that was updated in 1999, and then looking that over and coming up with, what should a comprehensive plan for the town of Dover look like in 2022. Okay, so I'll just go through the what I came up with. We can discuss each point. Everything is a vote of the majority of the planning. Well, I should say actually everything's a vote of 4 members of the planning board, since we're a 7-member body. So this is what I proposed as just clarifications or changes to what the proposed comprehensive plan says. So we'll just go through each point one by one and just see what your thoughts are. So I did it by page here. So on page 5, the zoning code has been revised numerous times since 1999. The master plan was last amended in 1999 is what I believe should be here, because when you look at the let's see, 3, 4, 5. It just says that the
zoning code.
right.
Yeah.
It seems to reference the wrong thing. Yeah, it says in promoting rezoning efforts, the town of Dover zoning code was last revised in 1999. So the master plan was last revised in 1999. The zoning code has been revised numerous times since 1999. So I just think it's just a misuse of some language there. So any discussion on that point? Okay. This was more of a clarification. So on page 6, there's this word bubble. Typically, a word bubble is described by the committee. Is it just clip art? Typically, larger words are larger to show their relative importance. So is this the case? So this is just really looking for some clarification. Was this just someone thought we should really emphasize green or sustainable, and not really emphasize fields or rural, or is this one person's idea? Was this based on a survey? It's really just looking for clarification. So that's all. Any thoughts or comments on this point here? No. Okay. All right. On page 7, community values, number 2, just talks about number 2, work to increase a sense of community throughout the different hamlets of Dover. I'm just looking for some clarification. Are we talking about Dover Plains and Wingdale? Are there additional hamlets of Dover that people would think of besides Dover Plains and Wingdale? People used to talk about we would talk Craft Village. Is that a hamlet? People may talk about some other aspect of town, and is that a hamlet? So I just again, some more clarification as to what is meant by hamlet.
So you don't want a definition of the word hamlet, because definition would be in the zoning itself.
Sure.
Okay,
But again, just
that's
what,
I'm-
just what does it mean by hamlets? Again, are we talking about the ones everybody would think of, Dover Plains, Wingdale, or are we talking about more than
Okay.
just those 2 hamlets? Okay. Number 4, just suggesting that this should include social media. It says develop a uniform method of receiving and responding to community comments and concerns, including newsletters, email list, website, and Dover TV. Clearly, social media is not going to be going anywhere. So adding social media to this list. Any thoughts there? Okay. On page 8, number 9. Number 9 says develop a community center. So I put should this be moved to the community resources list starting on page 18, because a community center is not really part of community values. It's really a community resource. So just more of maybe a bookkeeping sort of thing. But maybe it's in the wrong place. So any thoughts on that? Okay. And then a new community value, a new community value action item, just develop and maintain a local inventory of publicly accessible sites. Boyce Park, Dover Stone Church, Appalachian Trail, DEC fishing, various preserves, etc. So, okay. Any thoughts on that? Okay. Page 9, that numbers 2 and 5 could be combined and rewritten. So number 2 says, give special consideration to developing amenities and housing opportunities for elderly members of the community whose numbers have been steadily increasing. And then number 5, work to increase amenities and opportunities for the existing 65-plus population. This could involve the expansion of senior living centers, an increase in elderly-friendly activities, and a reevaluation of emergency services. I think that's all great. I just think it could be one thing instead of two. That's all.
Yeah, the overlap.
Any thoughts on that? Okay.
Fine.
Number 10, page 10, number 7. So it reads, support the diversity of people within the town to ensure equal social and economic opportunities for all groups. Really just a word that gets used more these days is, should it say that should be equitable social and economic opportunities instead of equal social and economic opportunities. So any discussion on replacing equal with equitable?
I agree.
Okay. All right. So on page 12, number 9, this is under housing. So what it reads is develop new legislation to regulate and foster the growth of Airbnb and other housing sharing services. I'm just suggesting it should read develop new legislation, regulate and foster the growth of housing sharing services. I don't think we should be putting in names of companies that may or may not exist in a few years. Or
Well, I think that's,
if you put in Airbnb, you're excluding other companies.
The term that gets used a lot in the land use world is short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals?
Yep.
Okay. So let me, excuse me. We have it as a Word document.
So
Foster the growth
Airbnb should
of-
be short-term rentals.
Well, maybe, I mean, you can use the broader housing sharing services. and
Slash.
comma, including short-term rentals,
Yeah, that's probably better.
Including short-term rentals.
because who knows what's coming down the pipe.
Sure.
That's good, yeah.
Right. All right. Any thoughts on that as it's written now?
Good.
Okay. All right. The next two are just, I think,
Typographical.
grammatical.
Yeah.
This is not it. Let's see. So number 10 reads, creating guidelines to govern the increasingly popular trend of tiny or mini housing. The guidelines should ensure local property values are not lowered as are a result of their construction, just a deletion of the second A-R-E. And then the next one, page 14, just has, number 10 just has an unnecessary spacing in the front of it. I know I'm being nitpicky, but
You know,
it's
I
going to
noticed
get
it.
printed and you're going to be staring at it for the next 10 years. So. Okay, also on page 14, number 13, amend zoning code to include solar and other renewable energy use. So it says amend zoning code to include solar and alternative energy use. This is just, rather than saying alternative, just saying other and renewable energy use. Part of the idea being that solar maybe should not be considered any longer as the alternative. It's that solar is going to be more and more, as we can see, a main source of power. So then just solar and other renewable energy use.
okay.
Any thoughts on that? Okay, and then a new one for number 14, again, this is under land use and zoning. So explore viability of walking/biking path connecting to Pauling and Amenia as part of a larger effort to connect the Harlem Valley Rail Trail and the Empire State Trail. So again, we're certainly benefited in Dover by having an active passenger railway. The downside to that is we're not going to have a rail trail where there's an active train line, obviously. So the idea being, though, that there is the Empire State Trail, and then the Harlem Valley, the Empire State Trail that's south and essentially west of the town of Dover, and then the Harlem Valley Rail Trail, which is north in town of Amenia and then going north. So that hopefully someday there would be some kind of connection that Dover would do its part of, we can go to the Paulding town line, we can go to the Amenia town line. Hopefully everybody else can do their part to connect to the other rail trail systems and have a rail trail, walking or biking, whatever it is, come through Dover. So just a new suggestion for the comprehensive plan. So any thoughts there? Okay. Page 15. Okay, natural resources, number 3. Let's see. Did I already? Okay. It currently reads, encourage limited development in designated 100-year floodplains and create an additional and creation of additional floodplain areas where possible. The language I'm proposing is that we would write, or we would suggest that number 3 reads, prohibit development in designated 100-year floodplains unless offsetting mitigation is provided, and encourage limited development in designated 500-year floodplains and the creation of additional floodplains where possible. I think we're just seeing more and more that the 100-year floodplain seems to be, not this summer, clearly, but seems to be more and more impacted, not every 100 years. I know that's kind of I don't know if misnomer is the right word, but there's a 1% chance of a flood in these areas. People just call it the 100-year floodplain. But it's clearly, if you just look at the last, say, 20 to 30 years, it's been flooded multiple times, not just once. So this is certainly much stronger language than the comprehensive plan committee had suggested, and so I'd like to hear the planning board's thoughts. As in part because these will, people will be likely proposing stuff that comes before us, and they may be in the 100-year floodplains.
Could you go back to the screen with the existing language?
Okay, so the existing language in the updated document is encourage limited development in designated 100-year floodplains and creation of additional floodplain areas where possible.
Okay.
So again, the suggestion to the town board from the comprehensive plan update committee was that they're encouraging limited development in the 100-year floodplain, which I'm certainly not arguing against that. I'm just saying I think we should go a step further, prohibit development in designated 100-year floodplains unless offsetting mitigation is provided, because they could say, look, we're going to build this here, but we can make, we're going to build in this acre of floodplain, but we're going to create 1.2, 1.5, 2 acres of floodplain over here to, more than offset it. And then,
unlike wetlands, they don't really work in that direction.
I know. But again, I think, I think you can certainly, you can create floodplains. So I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, but filling in one portion and removing an area somewhere else does not automatically balance out.
Sure.
Sometimes you can make it actually worse.
Okay.
So you gotta be,
Is there a suggestion as to what the language should be?
No, I mean, maybe it just has to include some type of study instead of just a simplistically of saying offset. It's not like wetland offsets where you're looking for a 2-to-1 credit or something.
Mm-hmm.
It actually has to be done within a model, a proper study, or you could actually make flooding downstream worse.
Okay. Again, I'm not trying to make it into I'm not trying to make it into a paragraph. So.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Another text edit to consider is instead of saying encourage limited, just say limit development within the floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say encourage, I think it sounds, you could read it as you want development.
Yeah, you want.
Well, so the current language as proposed by the committee is encourage limited development. So you're saying at least eliminate the word encourage, just have limited development.
The way you rewrote the first half of the sentence and just change it to limit development in the designated 500-year floodplain.
Oh, so you're saying leave the first part and delete this word?
In the part that you wrote, yes.
Okay.
So instead of encourage limited, just say limit.
Right. Well, what does the members of the planning board say? This is going to be our document, so.
Prohibiting and then limited, yeah.
Maybe you could say instead of is provided, is considered, because there may be a situation where someone can fill in the floodplain with zero effect, and by the code saying you have to provide an offset, that offset may make it actually worse.
So maybe unless offsetting mitigation is considered?
Considered by the planning board, gives the planning board the ability to have a study done to show that filling in this particular portion of the floodplain does absolutely zero negative effects, where if an offset was required, an offset by providing it could actually provide a detrimental. And then if the word says it has to be provided, and it can't be, to a positive term, that project can't go forward.
Understood.
Just trying to give the.
Again, this is the guideline, this is not the zoning.
Yeah, but it's how it starts.
Sure.
Because I've had other projects where the master plan actually becomes so strong that the zoning can't change it.
Sure. Okay.
If I can interject and just, first of all, agree with Mr. Berger and AKRF's assessment here, and just bring a little more legal nuance to this conversation, unfortunately. The floodplains are drawn by FEMA. They actually put out maps every couple of years.
Fully aware.
The 100 and the 500 years. We can't necessarily create additional floodplain, unfortunately. FEMA reaches down to the state, which reaches down and sort of tells localities sort of what kind of development they can and cannot allow. So long as the locality wants to keep its eligibility for the National Flood Insurance Program.
Right. Their perspective is that they would prefer that you have no development in the floodway, and that any development in the floodplain would increase the height by, what is it, more than a foot above?
More than 1 foot.
Yeah.
And you can go further than what FEMA requires as the minimum, and some communities have gone further than that.
Sure.
And it sounds like by saying you want to, again, encourage development in the floodplain, maybe.
We took out the word encourage.
Yeah, running afoul.
Another
Yeah, I agree
option
with
for the first sentence would be prohibit development in designated 100-year floodplains, with limited exceptions, and then, and when you do the law, you could work out those exceptions.
Okay.
Or you can keep this one, or unless offsetting mitigation.
Right. All right. Planning board members, any thoughts here as to what this should read? Again, the town board could just say, thank you, no, but I don't think they'll just dismiss out of hand, but I don't want to belabor this point for too much longer.
You want the word limited to just be limit? Limit development in designated?
Yes, it becomes the verb.
And limit. Okay. So, Member Williams,
And then do we need to take out the
unedited
part
since you
about the
said-
creation of additional floodplains? Because we can't.
Well, as I said, I guess you can't really, it's not like creating
That's a
wetlands. I mean, you're.
FEMA thing.
Member Holmes, Member Villano, any thoughts? If you're fine with.
I just think it's a matter of semantics, whether the town can truly create additional floodplain if it's a FEMA designation.
Sure. I mean, frankly, as you could probably tell, I just took the end of the committee sentence and then
No, I
just tacked it
understand.
on to what I
understand,
thought, yeah.
Because I don't think we could legally create a floodplain, correct?
No.
Because it's a FEMA designation.
I guess you can create the circumstances which may lead to a floodplain in the future, but.
You could enlarge a floodplain by certain actions.
Sure.
Of approval, and you can minimize
Right.
floodplains by certain actions of
Right.
planning.
And it wouldn't legally be a floodplain until
you
FEMA
can't
came back and then remapped it and said, oh, that is a floodplain
But
now.
you can't designate, say, an elevation of 120 around a certain area as a floodplain just for the heck of designating it.
Right.
Okay.
But you could, through action by the town or the planning board, enlarge or decrease a floodplain. And that would then, the town would do that through a mapping process called a LOMR or a letter of map amendment.
Right. Yeah, I remember we went through a whole process of
Yes.
doing that 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, a few of times, yes.
Yeah. All right. Anything further? Are we waiting for it to flood at this point to see what happens?
A lot of comments on
Okay.
Give it another hour.
All right. So just to finish this up, keep it as it is, change something, members of the planning board.
As it is right now,
Yeah,
as it
that's fine.
currently stands.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to page 17, number 25. Native plantings should be encouraged for new development in order to reduce the necessity of pesticides and develop more resilient local ecosystems. What I had written was, strong reason shall be provided for the use of non-native plantings in new development. Otherwise, native plantings shall be utilized in order to reduce the necessity of pesticides and develop more resilient local ecosystems. So I'm just, in a sense, just turning it around into, no, you will have native plantings unless you give us some real good reason why not to have native plantings. Rather than what is
I would say
currently proposed, just saying, native plantings should be encouraged.
perhaps compelling reason rather than strong. Compelling reason.
I'm getting tired. Compelling reason. All right. Any thoughts on the overall? I mean, it comes up in every application we have, what native plantings are you going to use and what, So just in a sense to just turn around, that you will, basically you're going to use native plantings unless you can have some compelling reason to not use native plantings. Any thoughts?
Good, I agree. That's good.
All right, and then number
27.
Oh, just to, so as it's read now, it says encourage developers and local community organizations to work with local conservation groups, i.e. Oblong Land Conservancy, to continue preserving pristine habitat and local wildlife corridors. My suggestion is that we add on Dutchess Land Conservancy, Friends of the Great Swamp. If anybody has other suggestions as to other groups that, I mean, those three certainly come up again and again as we go through things here in town.
Yeah, I agree.
But does anybody have any other groups that you can think of? Okay. But again, certainly those three come up often. So, so that's why I thought we should include the addition of the Dutch Lake Conservancy and the Friends of the Great Swamp. Any thoughts? Okay. Just a few more. Okay, page 18. All right, action item number 1 says promote annual community events such as Dover Day, tree lighting ceremony, fire company carnival by involving new participants and organizations. Under community resources, my suggestion is that the town should communicate with the J.H. Ketchum Hose Company regarding the future of the fire company carnival. We've had the pandemic. We haven't had a fire company carnival in a few years. I don't know that it makes sense for the town to include this in the comprehensive plan if the J.H. Ketchum Hose Company is no longer going to have the carnival.
Well, it's a such as thing. It doesn't say that we have to keep having the carnival. I would leave that one alone. I mean, it's just giving it as an example. It doesn't mean that it has to be continued in perpetuity.
Okay. Any thoughts?
Or possibly just call it town carnival.
Well, yeah,
This way the onus.
Yeah, I guess part of the rationale is that the town of Dover controls having Dover Day or not, having a tree lighting ceremony or not. The town of Dover doesn't control whether there's a fire company carnival. That's why I was thinking of not including it. And also that to check with the fire company as to whether it will continue. So that's why I was, it's not under the town's control, so that's why I was thinking it should be.
Or just take out fire company and leave
That's why I
carnival.
say take out fire company, just leave the carnival.
Okay.
Such as a carnival, yeah, okay. Okay.
The town should, okay, so we just remove
Fire company.
Fire company.
fire company as having it or not is not within the purview of the.
EU.
Thank you. Purview of the town. Okay. Page 19. Let's see. Having a new one, develop a strategy to increase availability of broadband internet. There's still parts of the town that don't have broadband internet through Cablevision, or some people still rely on not necessarily dial-up, but DSL. So just adding that in, I think it would, in all likelihood, if nothing else, it might just help in the town getting some grants in the future to just say, they could say, look, we, pointing to our best, our comprehensive plan that we're, we care about broadband internet. So, any discussion there?
Makes sense.
Okay. And then also, so Section 3, supporting information. So some of the data in Section 3 can and should be updated with more recent numbers. I mean, this process started, well over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so there's been, updates to, it's, a lot of it comes from census data. So there's certainly information that comes out every year from the census, not just the decennial census.
Well,
So.
I can answer to that because that part of the section that we worked on that, and the census numbers were not out yet. So then we
Right.
continued with the rest of it, so we did not go back and update them. We were hoping
Right.
that after it went through the town process, that the new numbers would be there.
Yeah, so I guess it's just, suggesting that
Yeah.
the town should look to update the numbers as much as possible. Obviously, if the numbers aren't out, they're not out. You can't do that. But. Okay. And then also, so it's really two different points here. Let me just put bullets, I guess. So a map of only the parcels that are changing zoning districts would be helpful as part of the process. This kind of goes to, I think, what someone was saying earlier, that it's tough to kind of just look at one map and then look at the other map and like, okay, what's staying the same, what's changing? So I just have this idea that there should be a map of these are the changes. This is going from residential to commercial. This is going from this commercial to residential. Just so it only shows the changes, because otherwise it's a bit of, flip book, just trying to figure out, okay, this is the same, this is the same, this is different.
Well, instead of a map, there's not that many parcels changing.
Okay, and I put it, before and after showing
list,
the
yeah.
plus or minus 10% of parcels changed.
A list, probably, because there's not that many changing, just a few from commercial to Gateway,
Okay,
and a few on 55 just going to Hamlet.
right. So I would think a map showing the changes would be more helpful than just merely a list, because then the list is something that you have to look back and figure out which parcels, from the list.
Doesn't matter. It's still got to go to the board and back to the comp group,
Sure.
so.
All right. So any thoughts on a map of only the parcels that are changing zoning districts?
I'm not quite visualizing what you're suggesting.
So it would be, think of the parcel map of the town completely white, except for this parcel is currently residential, but the proposal is that it becomes commercial, so that would be
Okay.
highlighted on this just largely white map. And then,
Would it be like an overlay on it?
or just, again, like I said, it would be a map that would be largely white because nothing's changing, and then only the parcels that are changing from residential to commercial, this kind of commercial, that kind of commercial, this commercial to residential,
Could be color
would only
coded.
have that color coding.
Color code or a hatch,
Yeah.
if you don't want to color it.
Yeah, I think that'd be better than a list.
Okay. All right. That's what I had. What did anyone else have?
Your comments overlap notes that I had made to myself quite a
Okay.
bit, so that's fine.
All right, thank you. And Member Lyle? Yes? Okay, thank you. Member Holmes?
I just want to say that reading this from cover to cover, I mean, I think they did a great job.
Yes, definitely.
Comprehensive
Oh, yeah.
committee.
Obviously.
If you go to the front, you can see who was on the committee. Give them a lot of credit, the time that they spent. Nothing is ever going to read quite the way we want it to read.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So everybody wants to tweak something a little bit, but
True.
in an overall, I think they did a great job.
Yeah, definitely.
And I
Yeah, it's
commend
a
them for it.
lot of work.
And thank you.
It met
to-
for almost over 2 years, twice a month.
Yeah.
Thank you,
and
our secretaries and the
Paige
members of the committee.
Paige.
And
And-
our planning board member Valerie Robadier, who's on the
Val
committee.
did the whole historic part. That was all her. So, yeah, they worked very hard on it.
So you didn't have any addition?
I,
Okay.
no, Like I said, there's some
Yes.
things
Yeah, you
in there
could-
that I
right.
wanted to tweak, but you know what? They did a good job.
Yes.
On an overall.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Member Williams?
Good.
All right, great. So with that, need a motion to, motion to authorize the planning board chair to sign a letter including these recommendations regarding the comprehensive plan update. Motion made by Member Holmes, seconded by Member Villano. So just any last discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Okay, the motion is adopted 5-0 with 2 absences. Okay, to the, okay. All right, so our next meeting is October 3rd. The deadline was September 16th. We had received nothing?
Just request for an extension on an erosion and sediment control for Stony Brook.
Okay,
And I think that's it.
all right. Do we need to have an entire planning board meeting for a 5-minute? Okay. That could be at the October 17th meeting and,
Oh, and a release of,
and a release of bond?
a release of bond.
Okay.
Halls Apple Road,
Oh, LWF, was it?
Yeah,
it's not the bond,
LWF.
it's the residential.
yeah.
They had it was basically a house that had a large disturbance to it.
Oh.
Simple chapter 65.
Okay.
This wasn't the pond,
So what
but it's the same people,
so what's the request?
just release a bond.
That,
Yeah, it's,
so it is to release?
No, it wasn't
Different piece
it
of
wasn't the
property.
bond for the pond. Because nobody thinks of the LWF as the pond. They also had a smaller project before us,
Yes.
Oh.
before that, which was expansion of a house, which was more than half an acre, so. it was
Understood.
a Bond.
Okay.
But it's the same name, so people think it's the pond, but it's not the pond.
Okay,
The pond's still under construction.
right.
Hasn't been-
This is off of Dover Furnace Road?
Yeah.
All right.
The one we did the site walk and
Yes,
everything.
yes.
But on the same property, up off of, on the other side, they did improvement to their house.
Up on Halls Apple Road?
Yeah,
yeah.
Right,
yes.
okay,
Yeah, I have to go by the grid numbers
sure.
to make
Yeah.
sure.
But right,
which
it's all one
one's
parcel
which.
because the parcel's like
It's huge.
a huge
Huge,
number of
huge
acres. Okay, yes.
parcel.
Right, right.
With two different projects.
Okay. All right, so are we, I guess we're saying there is no October 3rd meeting? I mean, the only thing we received by the deadline was,
The only thing that would be on for the October 3rd meeting would be the release of the bond.
okay.
Unless there's a reason why it's time sensitive, there's no reason you couldn't put that on October 17th.
Okay. Any thoughts? All right. So there will not be a meeting on October 3rd. There will be a meeting on October 17th. It will include those 2 items, the continuation of the 2 public hearings that we had, and then anything else that we receive by the deadline of September 30th. Okay. And then we'll have a meeting on November 21st.
21st.
Because 2 weeks prior to that is the night before Election Day, and this room gets filled up with all the election equipment, and we can't have a meeting. So, all right. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn, seconded by Member Williams. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
The same to you, we're too much alike to like each other like we used to do.
I like to go out and romp and stomp. You like to go to parties in those honky tonks. We're too much alike to like each other.